Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hello, Detroit, and welcome to your Daily Detroit for Thursday, April 25th, 2024. I am Jer Stays, coming to you from our studio at Techtown, across the table from me, as he is every Thursday. Well, every Thursday he doesn't run out of town. Norris Howard, how are you?
You already know what it is. The Prince of Bright Mode returns. Hello, Detroiters. We are here once again to talk and wax poetically about the city we love.
For sure, for sure. And I will say, this episode will not be full of content about the Comic-Con of sports ball.
That's right.
That is the NFL draft, because that is really what this is.
Yes, it is the hand-egg pilgrimage, as I like to call it. Is tons of people are in town for the NFL draft. We hope everybody enjoys their time in the city and enjoys themselves safely. It is something that Mayor Duggan and the administration have put a lot of energy into. And it's gonna be interesting to see what some of the takeaways are in the afterglow of this event, because there seems to be a big hope that people are going to lead a city with a lot of goodwill.
All right, Norris, I feel like we got to talk about something that I don't want to talk about, but I feel like we need to talk about it because it's the kind of thing in life that is unfortunate, to say the least.
Yeah, most definitely. A guest appearance from everybody's least favorite tourist. A group called White Lives Matter Michigan decided all across Metro Detroit that they would splay racist billboards all across the region on Hitler's birthday. They appeared in Hazel Park, Mount Clemens, Brownstown, a couple other places.
I did not know that 420 was also Hitler's birthday.
Yeah.
I had no idea about that one. These billboards are pretty terrible. They snuck through the filtering process from a company called Billboards for Me, and
See
then
how though? That's what I want to know. And obviously we could talk more
and
about
there's
that.
5-star outdoor.
Yeah.
I mean, so what you can do is you can go ahead and buy a billboard for somebody as a celebration.
Yeah.
But they snuck through kind of these call things, because one of the things that far right groups do is they use code words to try to get the word out there that, hey, this thing's a thing, and reach their people. And this group, I cannot believe that it's actually called this. It's called White Lives Matter Michigan, took credit for the signs.
But also, one of them actually has a photo of Hitler in it.
So that one should have been vetoed.
I
don't know about you, but if you don't know what Hitler looks like, I have questions.
We have some issues. But also there's a good old Back to Africa sign. There's just
the creativity level is low here.
It's very low.
How many times on Facebook have you been told to go back to Africa?
Not on Facebook, but a lot on Twitter.
Okay.
But the point is that we get to the point here where I have seen comments to this show, into many shows, and into a lot of the radio shows here in Metro Detroit, where people constantly talk about why is it always about race? Why are we always talking about race? Why are we always talking about racism? Why are we always bringing this up? If we just move past it, then we wouldn't have to, because stuff like this happens all the time. And only sometimes do we report on it. And I wanted to flag it and talk about it to show that this is good old Metro Detroit. This is a quote-unquote diverse metro area. We have many different people of many different races. This is not the antebellum South. This is not an old slave state. This is not Alabama. No diss to Alabama. But this is not Alabama, where the Confederate flag still flies high. No, this is in Metro Detroit, Michigan.
And there have been times I have been in different places of the region seeing, different banners and stuff or things posted up. And there is this undercurrent here. And there's a long history, actually. I've mentioned this a little bit before on the show, but Highland Park was a huge home for white supremacists, and when they got found out, it's when they stared leaving.
Yeah,
Highland Park was beautiful back in the day, but there was a second side to Highland Park that people don't like to talk about.
No.
And it was something that is part of what we wrestle with to this day. And I hear this all the time. Why is it that we bring race into the conversation? It's really easy to say that when you're the privileged person in power, right? Because it affects you. To me, I can live my life if I chose to. I could live my life, choose to live in another community, whatever. I could completely disconnect with it and never see it again. You can't.
No, I can't, and it bleeds into so much other stuff. I mean, I think about like my wife loves country music. And for many, 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 many years, she would tell me it is something that she likes, she loves, wouldn't necessarily be open about going to a country music concert.
Did the Beyonce album change that at all?
No. No. I mean, that changed over time. Like, she definitely will go and, listen to whatever or see whoever she wants to see now. But in her younger years, there were some elements to that. And that bared out in the greater sort of discourse of it. You weren't seeing a lot of black country artists. You definitely didn't see a lot of black female country artists. And then when people got bent out of shape, when Lil Nas X came out with Old Town Road, because it's not country. Well, yeah, it is. And it just goes back to the fact that there's that feeling that black people kind of don't have a claim over country music and its culture, or rodeo culture, or Western culture, which is a lie, because we've been here since the beginning of the country. So anything that is intrinsically American, we did it too, if we didn't invent it. So my point, I bring that up to say, you're absolutely right. And you are able to go and experience the fullness of American culture, and certain things will remain cloistered to a person like me. And that is why we can constantly bring up race and ethnicity.
Do you think part of the reason why we get this feedback from people, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like sometimes there are certain things that people of color can say, and it's great and it's fine, it's supported. But if it's something, it's almost like there's a bigger backlash when a person of color says something that the majority or that white culture doesn't agree with. The backlash almost gets larger, and that's where you get more of that call.
Yeah, because nobody likes to be told to their face what they're like, right? This is something I actually had to really reckon with when having very tough conversations with my wife about things like sexism, misogyny, the patriarchy, these things that inherently as men we don't ever have to think about, right? But I saw a tweet not too long ago that just really resonated again. And these are conversations we've had for years, but the tweet that started this conversation that her and I had most recently was, nighttime wouldn't be scary if it wasn't for men. Think about that. Like, as we talk about urban environments and urban settings, not so much like going into the woods at night. That's scary for multiple reasons.
That also is part of that whole conversation. If we don't have enough conversations about experiencing areas and like cities and places through the eyes of a woman as opposed to a man, because so much of it's kind of dominated. Like, this is a generalization, but like most of Reddit's like dudes.
Yeah.
Right. And so the conversation about urbanism or all the other stuff is very dude centric. This came out to me when we were talking about the trees around Washington Boulevard. There is that boulevard that they've redone, it's actually quite beautiful. Yeah. They put in this path and everything. And people were very, very mad. Very, very liberal people were very mad about the trees going away. But nobody was thinking about the fact that density of trees was actually scary for women in the neighborhood.
Yeah. And that's what I mean, is that we don't look at it through those lenses as men. And in many ways, we don't look at the world through the lens of minorities or people of color. And so these things come up. I'm pretty sure there were thousands of people who drove by those billboards and it meant nothing to them. It meant I am certain that hundreds and maybe even hundreds of thousands of people drove by those billboards and it meant nothing to them. But if I were to drive past one of those, if a Jewish person was able to drive past one of those billboards, it brings up and swells up so many emotions of inadequacy, of not belonging, of fear, and of the realization that there are still some in this country, in your metro, in your neighborhood, that do not view you as a whole human being or even as a human being at all. So That is why I wanted to talk about this today. And I'd be interested to get the feedback. If anybody who's seen, if you've seen these billboards, I would love to hear from you, because we have to reckon with this in Metro Detroit, because we are diverse, but we're also very segregated as well.
Well, I think about that, a few years ago, I posted an animated GIF or GIF. What am I supposed to say? GIF or GIF? GIF. Animated GIF of the changing demographics in Metro Detroit. And I think it was probably the most triggering post I've ever written, because people got so mad talking about their neighborhood and either how it's changing or how it's not changing, or how they don't want it to change. Because as we've been able to see this over the last 20 years or so, the suburbs of Metro Detroit are getting more and more diverse. And I know that so much of the conversation is about the city of Detroit, but I really think that there are more things happening, and I know the media doesn't focus on as much because it's not the city and all this other stuff.
No, but the flashpoints
are the suburbs.
Yes.
You think about communities like East Point.
Yep.
And all the issues. I know somebody who literally was mowing their lawn, and like somebody walks out and like sticks a Stars and Bars in their in their flagpole next door, like while they're mowing the lawn.
Wow.
Right? Like, these are the kind of things that happen in certain areas, and that's part of that tension within like a community like Warren, between the South and the North, or, because the I-696 line, because some people will say now I-696
is the new 8 Mile.
Yeah. I've helped people before, actually, when I've been in the suburbs, like, oh, where do I go? Well, I never go south of 696.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me. Like, it's bananas to me.
Yeah, it's insane.
But that is how there is a section of people who truly, deeply think that way. And I think as different people move to communities, I was at a networking event a while ago, and this community leader, African-American, talked about how they're moving to 23 Mile Road.
Never.
But that's where their family wanted to be near shopping and all that other stuff.
No.
Right? Like,
so far.
My point in sharing that is 10 years ago, I would never hear that.
No, absolutely.
And 10 years ago, like, that is how much things are changing. I think that's also part of what is affecting the demographics of the city, because more places are felt like you can go. And so people do go. And there's like this tension that I think we don't really wrestle with or put it in the right areas. I was thinking about this with all the protests. During COVID and whatever, like, the protests would come within a block of my house sometimes, and I would hear them and whatever. But how many times, not to let the city of Detroit off the hook,
right?
But like, I get pulled over in some communities with my Detroit plates, and then they're like, "Oh,
yeah, oh, you're good,"
right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a thing.
Yeah,
and I know that like there is issues there, but these communities are smaller, or we don't want to talk about them. Like, I think about when I used to work in television news 25 years ago or whatever, that you would see stories in the city ran because they weren't too close to the people who were listening, because people don't really want to hear the scary story near them. They're very interested in the true crime and all that other stuff, but they want it just a little bit.
Oh yeah.
At arm's length.
Arm's length. Yeah. And I agree with that. And I just think this was a perfect example of how not talking about it further seeds the discord, further seeds the divisions, so to speak. If you have an issue with somebody bringing up something that harms them, you may not even be personally responsible, but I have had people have visceral, physical reactions to me in the academic setting, in the media setting, everywhere I've ever been, have visceral physical reactions to me bringing up a personal experience of racism that somehow was an affront to their existence. It was an affront. So how dare you have a racist experience in our beautiful northern state? What? I've had somebody say it didn't they gaslit me and said, "Hey man, I was pulled over in Redford and had an officer throw me on the hood of my car, even though all my tabs were on point, even though all of my stuff was verified, valid, licensing order, all of that kind of stuff. Pulled me out of the car, threw me on my own hood, and told me that I robbed somebody's house on the other side of town." But no, it didn't really happen that way. Didn't really happen that way. They were just looking for the bad guys. Nah, they was looking for me. in quotations.
And that comes to the core issue of it, that this is complex, right?
But it's not, though. I hate when we say that, because it's not. It's not complex. It's not complex. It is not complex. Racism is not complex.
Well, racism is not, but I think that people don't want to acknowledge it within themselves.
It's not hard. Do you not? Okay.
So it's like, so for me, controversial, unpopular opinion, I think that by definition, growing up in this society, you grow up around racism, so there are internalized racist structures that happen whether you think you do or not, that you commit racist acts, whether or not you think you do or intended to.
That's facts.
Because you grew up in this structure, you will do it.
That's facts. And that is true of everyone. That's not just a white people problem. That is true of everyone. I have heard Black folks call South Asian people racial epithets. I've heard South Asian people call Arab people racial epithets. This is the reality we all function in, right? That we must deconstruct in order to move forward. But that's not difficult. Do you know what the easiest thing in the world to be is? Nice. It's the easiest thing in the world to be. To just walk past someone. Good morning. Hey, how you doing? Wonderful. And when you see something bad has happened to this person or to their community, to have empathy for them. That's so easy.
So it's to be just more accepting of, if this is someone's experience they present to you, listen and let it, listen and maybe
that's
do something.
it.
But that's good enough. It's not an affront to you.
No, it is very simple. And I know that may sound like kumbaya to a lot of people, and yes, there are structural systems that we need to dismantle in order to move forward, but if we're talking about day-to-day interpersonal interactions with each other, yeah, maybe a giant racist billboard shouldn't be getting through, and whoever works there, I'm not going to say whatever your internal policies are, but they in trouble. But I think if me bringing this up makes you triggered, it makes you feel like, why is Norris bringing up race once more? That's not my problem. That's a problem you have to solve within yourself, because it should be very easy for you to say, wow, that's really terrible, Norris. I'm sorry you had to see something like that. In the same vein that I would look at any other group that sees anything racist directed at their group and say, wow, that's really terrible. I really wish you didn't see that. It's very easy.
Well, dailydetroit@gmail.com or 313-789-3211 if you dial a phone ever. I'm not sure anyone does.
I love the phone.
Really?
Yeah, man. Dude, nothing's lost in translation.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Looking forward to the rest of the conversations. This week, we're going to be out at the draft doing a few things. And then next week, we're going to have this great conversation with an architect and urban designer about the RenCen and the past, present, and future of it. You're not going to want to miss it. But for now, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Norris Howard.
Remember that you are somebody. Don't forget to leave 5 stars on your favorite podcast app, and we'll talk tomorrow.